Empaths are often told that they're just sensitive, that everyone feels the same way, and that healing should make them less impacted. By the end of this video, you'll understand why empath healing doesn't remove the sensitivity at all. It removes the distortion, and how true healing leads to sovereignty, not numbness. Hi, I'm Diane, and welcome to The Resolution. Today I want to talk about something that came up in a real conversation with a friend of mine. They said, empaths aren't more special. Everyone has gifts. And I totally agree with that. I really do. Because yes, of course, everybody has gifts. Everyone also has empathy. To some degree, everyone can feel. But something about the sentence stayed with me because it felt true, but it also felt incomplete. So I want to slow this down, not to argue, not to label people, and definitely not to decide who is or isn't an empath. That's not my job. What I want to do is name a distinction that often gets missed. And when it gets missed, a lot of empaths end up feeling misunderstood, minimized, or quietly judged. So, feeling emotions is not the same as being shaped by them. Most humans have empathy. They can feel when someone's sad, they can sense the mood in a room, they can resonate with other people's emotions. That's empathy. But being an empath in the way that I'm talking about isn't just about feeling, it's about impact. Empaths don't just feel emotions, they're affected by emotions. They don't just notice the room, their nervous system reorganizes around it. Some people can feel deeply and stay solid in who they are. They don't lose themselves. They don't abandon themselves. They don't abandon their inner state. They don't feel responsible for fixing, soothing, or stabilizing anyone else. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But many empaths grew up learning, often without words, that safety lived outside of them. That if other people were okay, then they could relax. If the room was calm, then their body can rest. If everyone else was regulated, then it was safe to breathe. That's not personality. That's conditioning. That's a nervous system that learned to scan, attune, and adapt in order to survive emotionally, relationally, and sometimes even physically. So when an empath walks into a room and immediately feels the tone, when their breath changes, when their body lightens or softens, depending on who's present, they're not being dramatic. They're not being weak, and they're certainly not trying to be special. Their nervous system is doing exactly what it learned to do. This is where comments like everybody feels that way can hurt, even when they're well-intended. Because when someone who feels empathy without being impacted says that, what an empath often hears is, why can't you just handle it the way I do? But not everyone is shaped by what they feel. Different nervous systems, different loads, same worth. And I want to be very clear here. Healing does not make empaths less sensitive. What healing does is healing also doesn't turn empaths into people who only feel a little bit and then move on with their day. Healing removes the distortion. It removes hyper-vigilance. It removes self-abandonment. It removes the unconscious belief that you're responsible for everyone else's emotions. So you still feel deeply. You still sense the nuance. And you still resonate. You just don't disappear anymore. And for those who are feeling this land and wondering how to actually live differently, this is the work that I guide inside the Resolution Private Immersion. It's an 8-week one-on-one container where we work gently with the nervous system. So these patterns don't just make sense. They finally start to soften and change. There's nothing to fix. It's about returning to yourself slowly and gently. So no, the goal is not to become someone else. The goal is not to become less empathic. And it's definitely not to become better or higher than anyone else. This isn't about being special. It's about being affected. Empaths don't carry more value. They carry more input. And healing doesn't elevate you above others. It stabilizes you within yourself. So if you've always felt tired just being around people, if you felt like you needed space but didn't know why, if you learned to read rooms before you learned how to rest, and if you've been told you're too sensitive or too much, there's nothing wrong with you. And if you experience empathy without that level of an impact, there's nothing wrong with you either. Different nervous systems, same worth. This space and this work is for the ones who are learning how to feel deeply without losing themselves. Right. Thank you very much for joining me today. This was a kind of a personal one because the conversation kind of affected me. It was just something that I know that a lot of people have these types of conversations with people when you're trying to have people understand what you're going through as an empath, and they're relating, but they're relating in the sense of they have empathy, which is completely different. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody. You don't have to over-explain. You know what's going on, and there's so many other people that are going through that too. So thank you so much for being a part of my journey, and I am so grateful that you watched this video, and it's really helpful for the new channels if you like and subscribe and share and comment and all that fun stuff. So I'm Diane, this is The Resolution, and we're just getting started. See you on the next video.